This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Brett Young. Change the game with BY7204LL, Brett Young's newest canola hybrid with Liberty Link technology.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RealAg Radio. I am your host of the day, Lyndsey Smith. It is Tuesday, September 10th. That's right, Tuesdays with Lyndsey. That's me, Lyndsey. And do you know what today is? Yes, it's September 10th, which, an average day. But 12 years ago, in 2012, today was my very first day with Real Agriculture. My son was 6 months old. Sean Haney had asked me to come work for RealAg. At the time, really, it was just him, Jason Strovey, our producer, making a string of videos, writing a couple op-eds, and Sean basically crisscrossing Canada, pretending like he lived in every province. He asked me to join, and my very first week with RealAg, guess what I got to do? I got to go to Canada's Outdoor Farm Show at Woodstock, Ontario, which just so happens to be kicking off today. Yes, 12 years later. It is 3 days of, heat and humidity and a lot of plots in Woodstock, Ontario. Anyway, reflecting on 12 years, it goes by in a blink, that is for sure. Still, I think that I am just so lucky that I get to do this job. And I'm also lucky I don't do nearly as much video as I used to. I much prefer to write, and I don't mind audio, but I'd rather be writing, I think, than most things, or seeing people in person. But there you go. And of course, hats off to Sean Haney for having the vision for this company. In these 12 years together, Sean has built this to be not just a website, obviously at RealAgriculture.com. We've got a YouTube channel with where all of our series live. So if you follow any of our canola school, wheat school, corn school, soybean school, it's all on YouTube. All of our past seasons are on YouTube. So you can search, you can find everything you want to watch there. And of course, podcasting. Before podcasting was cool. In fact, there was a time where we had many arguments over what even is a podcast. Does it have to have a brand? Is it just audio you listen to? Anyway, I lost that one. But we're on Spotify. We're all over the place, really. And we also do, and this is actually one of the places where Sean is today, we do a lot of moderating. We do keynote addresses. We host this show. We host this show live all over Canada and even parts of the U.S. And frankly, it has been an absolute adventure, and I am excited for what the next 12 years holds. It really does go by so quickly. All right. And with that, two things that I get to do with this job that I really enjoy. And these, of course, when I started 12 years ago, would have never been even in the realm of what I thought I would do in a day. Last night, hosted the Agronomists. I'm going to say, especially because I love September, I love back to school, this feels like the new year. January 1 doesn't. So we're going to call last night's episode sort of the kickoff of the new season. I don't know what season we're on, but whatevs. And was joined by my good friends Rob Miller and Tammy Jones. So Rob is with BASF, Tammy is with Corteva, Tammy's out of Manitoba, Rob's out of Ontario. And the two of them, excellent agronomists, and really both so incredibly committed to fall weed control. And so last night's show, all about weed control, really important aspect of any integrated pest management plan for tough to kill weeds, perennial weeds, herbicide-resistant weeds. And so did get to do that. I love that show. It's so much fun. It goes live 8 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. And then, of course, you can catch the replay on YouTube under our live stream or at RealAgriculture.com/agronomists. But I also grabbed a clip for today's show because there was so much good info. I don't want you to miss out on that. And then, of course, the other thing I get to do is host this show, Tuesdays with Lyndsey. And yeah, I'm Sean's backup, so I'm also going to be here tomorrow. I get to host tomorrow's show. And I'm on the Issues panel on Friday with Calvin Hepner, who Calvin just celebrated his 10 years with Real Agriculture. So, did I ever think that this is what I would be doing. I don't know that that is the case, but I love every minute of it. And you know what? Thank you so much for each and every one of you who listens, who downloads, who streams, however you get the RealAg content. We're here for it. We love your feedback. To that end, zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. Got some great feedback on the tech adoption discussion, great feedback on our discussion on China and how should Canada actually manage China, our relationship with China. That's actually the poll on our website right now. And so right now it sounds like most people want our federal government to play chess, not checkers, with China and really up their game. But you can have your say too. Go and weigh in on our poll. There's also the RealAg listener line. We mentioned it a lot. Some of you like to call in and leave long rambling messages. We're here for that too. 855-776-6147. All right. Enough about me and my 12 years, but congrats to me. I'm going to go have more coffee. Let's take a break. I will be back just after this. This is actually an incredibly important story and one that we've been following along, but maybe haven't covered enough of. So Kevin Thomason is going to join me after the break, and we're going to talk about the 770 acres in Wilmot Township where residents and farmers have basically said that the government has been elbowing its way in to try and develop this land that should remain farmland, and the entire process has not been transparent. And frankly, there's still a lot of unanswered questions as to what this land is even for. So we're going to take a break. Stick around. We're going to hear from Kevin Thomason and the issue of that land in the Wilmot Township here in Ontario right after this.
At Vaterstad, we aim to be the world's leading partner for outstanding emergence. We're doing that through innovative tillage, planting, and seeding equipment that's optimized for your field conditions and soil types. We also offer industry-leading capacities to help you get the job done in shorter windows of time. It's all designed to give your crop the best start possible so you can maximize yields. Vaterstad, we look forward to growing together.
The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com has everything you need to get your crop off to a great start and a strong finish. Whether you're growing chickpeas, faba beans, lentils, or peas, you'll get all the latest and best agronomic information at PulseSchool.com. A library of top-notch agronomy videos from industry experts available on demand at your fingertips. Visit the Pulse School, brought to you by BASF on RealAgriculture.com.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety, enhanced weed control, and a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Tuesday, September 10th, and I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. And this segment is brought to you by Koch Agronomic Services. For agronomically effective dual UAN inhibition, the smart answer is Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. To learn how its two active ingredients protect UAN from 3 forms of nitrogen loss, visit kochag.ca. If you've been paying attention to the news here in Ontario, you will have potentially seen coverage of some protests happening in Kitchener, Waterloo, and in the Wilmot Township. What has happened there is a chunk of 770 acres of land was set aside for development. Well, that's at least one of the stories of what happened. We decided that it was time to dig in to what actually is happening with the Wilmot Township and Kitchener-Waterloo having protests saying that they are unwilling hosts of a huge development happening on farmland current farmland in their area. There are still a lot of unknowns with this story. Of the 770 acres, not all of it has actually been purchased for development, but a portion of it has been from farmers. Those farmers that did sell said that they were threatened with expropriation if they didn't accept the deal. To dig into what is happening, what is known and what is not, I asked Kevin Thomason. Now, he is involved in this protest. He is also vice chair of the Grand River Environmental Network. Now, Kevin is incredibly passionate about this. He and the people he represents do not want this giant piece of land that the government is trying to put together to be developed. There's a huge amount to discuss on this one. I'm only pulling a clip from my conversation with Kevin because it's a full 30 minutes long. There's lots to cover. So if you would like to hear the full discussion, please head on over to RealAgriculture.com. On that, just scroll down that page. You will find the post there and listen to the full discussion. Or please head to our YouTube channel. You can watch the full video there. I've pulled a clip, though, to try and summarize where we're at with Wilmot Township being an unwilling host to this development of 770 acres.
Yeah, indeed. And we have unfolding here kind of every farmer's worst nightmare. And that's just somebody showing up literally in the middle of the day, trying to take the farm from them. And of course, it's not just your farm, it's your business, it's your home, it's your livelihood. And, the situation we had here was, it first started actually back in January when a group of farmers far out in the countryside, 25 kilometers distant from Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, are kind of our major urban centers here in Waterloo region. And so back in January, suddenly this young entrepreneur shows up. He's a young Kitchener developer, done some condos in downtown Kitchener, offering them a pretty generous amount for farmland. And this is really strange because this is farmland out in the middle of nowhere that is never expected any sort of development. It's far from any urban boundary. It's far outside our countryside line. And in fact, even when some of the farmers went to the local municipality, they kind of laughed them out of the room, saying there's no way anyone would ever get development approval. That's some of the most protected prime farmland there is in Canada. The idea of somebody creating a massive industrial zone right in the heart of an agricultural township that could impact things for kilometers in every direction seemed pretty absurd. So the farmers all uniformly rejected this young entrepreneur's absurd offers back in January. But then in March, just about 8 weeks later, suddenly this U.S. land aggregation firm showed up, Canacre, who claimed they were working for the region of Waterloo and told the farmers they had 10 days to accept this ridiculously low offer, less than half that most of the farmers had already been offered just back in January. And if they didn't accept that amount, they would face expropriation within 10 days. So given 10 days to try to make a decision of do you sell out and pick up and move your farm, your business, your livelihood, or everything, or fight, that's when the farmers said, no, this just isn't right. This isn't the way we do things. And they started reaching out and making things aware in the community. We knew a lot of the elected officials and we knew our way around the council chambers in Queen's Park and that sort of thing. So we were able to hit the ground running with an all-star team in the community, meaning we saw the farm organizations like the Waterloo Federation of Agriculture, the NFU, the National Farmers Union, the Christians farmers, all of them come together real quickly and try to say this isn't the future that our community needs, but we couldn't get any answers. And this is the real strange thing, in the fact that when everyone went to the local officials and asked our local municipality what's up, they said, oh, sorry, we can't talk to you. We're under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. Right. And then when we went and talked to our regional representatives, we were told, sorry, we can't talk to you. We're under a non-disclosure agreement. And then when we went to the province and they went down to St. Thomas to learn from the farmers in that area, where that giant Volkswagen battery plant is going in. And to put that in perspective, when that plant is finished, it will be the fourth largest building in the world. The scope and scale of these mega industrial facilities are beyond things that most people can fathom. And no one would tell us what was going on, but with the amount of acreage that was being threatened here, literally it's an 8.5 kilometer drive just around the perimeter of these properties. The site is 1.5 times the size of Disneyland in California. So it is a massive development. This isn't just a small 100-person company going in somewhere. The scale and scope of this was phenomenal. The frustration of not being able to get answers from anyone, even the province simply pointed the finger back to the region and municipality. So we had no one willing to talk to us, no idea who's behind this, no idea what it's for, not a single public meeting, contrary to all previous planning, just something that didn't seem to be in the best interest of agriculture or our entire community.
Now, what has happened, as Thomason explained, is that a portion of the 770 acres did change hands. On that, we saw earlier this summer where a standing crop of corn, instead of being allowed to be taken all the way to harvest, about now, in a couple of weeks, if it was silage, it was destroyed, even though nothing is happening on the land. That, of course, has further aggravated the people of the Wilmot Township, who are saying that that is not only a cost, it's also a loss. We have standing crop that obviously, had fertilizer put into it, could have eventually been livestock feed, or used for ethanol and the byproducts used for livestock feed, and yet it was simply destroyed. There was, just this past week, a council meeting, and farmers mobilized once again and headed to Kitchener in a procession to further protest what's happening, using the term, and this is important here, that Wilmot Township is an unwilling host. I asked Thomason what that means and where that came from.
And we still don't know what's going on, and the frustration continues to mount. Doug Ford said you wouldn't voice this on an unwilling community, so what does unwilling look like? We've had tens of thousands of people sign petitions. We printed some lawn signs. We printed 100, thinking, gee, how are we going to get rid of 100 lawn signs? They were gone in a couple of hours. Then we printed 500, thinking it would last for weeks, and they were gone in 2 days. We're now up over 3,500 lawn signs up all around the community saying that we're unwilling. When almost every house on a street has a mini billboard on the front lawn saying they're unwilling, that's a pretty strong stance. And you'd think our governments would be listening to this, and they haven't. So this is why things are continuing to build and grow. Our first protest outside Wilmot Council had about a dozen people. The next one had 24. The one after that had about 50. The next one after that had 150. The one last week had 300 plus people. At Regional Council, then again, Regional Council met last week for the first time since the summer recess, and farmers are so angry that they said, we're going to bring our tractors. And we're going to drive it right down the middle of the expressway and make sure that we're being heard, because they're not hearing us. They're not listening. And literally, we ended up with a kilometer-long convoy of tractors going 27 kilometers from the site out in Wilmot, right down the middle of the expressway, all the way into downtown Kitchener, and then parking right in front of the regional headquarters.
Ultimately, as of right now, the farmers and the citizens of Wilmot Township do not have a clear answer from the province as to what is planned for the 770 acres. As Thomason says, they don't have the 770, that block of acres actually purchased yet. And so the citizens want this project, whatever it may be, stopped. And that is what will be brought to council. Now, Thomason also shared that there was a lot of back and forth. When they went to the province said you need to talk to the municipality. When you talk to the municipality, they said we're getting all of our direction from the province. And as you heard earlier, it was said that a lot of couldn't be shared because of NDA, of non-disclosure agreements. Thomason says that realistically, Wilmot Township is making it very clear that they're an unwilling host to whatever this development is of this piece of farmland and want it stopped. Whether or not that actually occurs is what we will keep tabs on and try and get a sense of where the directive actually came from. It's pretty clear when you talk to some people that really this is the province trying to get shovel-ready projects up and running wherever they can actually access the land. But as we'll see, perhaps more, and this is the caution that Thomason said, we may see more projects like these trying to move forward. Where does that put preserving farmland in this province? And as he says as well, if you want to go check out and hear it in his own words, that if the government can push into an area that has farmland protected or set aside and planned for to maintain farmland, if they can go in and simply suggest strongly that it be developed into something else, Does that mean that they can do this in any other jurisdiction? That's the caution. If you've got thoughts on this, or if you've been involved in this issue and want to have your say, would love to hear from you. Smith at RealAgriculture.com. And of course, you can access us online as well, of course, on X, Facebook, Instagram. We're there. Send us a message if you'd like. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more of RealAg Radio right after this. If you have a growing list of questions about getting more from your fields, know that Koch Agronomic Services has an answer for every acre. With a full spectrum of nutrient management, nutrient protection, and seed enhancement options, Koch Agronomic Services offers a deep portfolio of agronomically effective products. Each designed to enhance yield potential, all available to help solve your problems. Find the answer that's right for your acres. Start by visiting kochag.ca. That's KOCH ag.ca.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight with the Canadian Canola Growers Association. We're joined right now by Dave Gallant. He is the CCGA's VP of Finance and APP Operations. Dave, great to chat with you again.
Good to be here, Sean.
Lots happening in the world of canola and harvest, well underway. Now, let's talk about the CCGA cash advances. I know a lot of farmers take them and use them, and are becoming more and more familiar with the program. But let's start at the beginning here. For anyone who doesn't know, who is CCGA and why are we talking about cash advances with the organization?
Well, the Canadian Canola Growers Association has been around for 40 years. We've been delivering the cash advance program for that 40 years. And in about the last 20 years, we've started representing farmers as an advocacy group, talking to issues on a national and international level that affect farmers. The cash advance program itself has been around for over 50 years. And what it represents is it gives farmers access to cash flow for their inventory without having to sell. Big benefits of the program for farmers are the first $250,000 this year is interest-free. The remaining $750,000 is at prime minus a quarter. And CCGA offers the program on over 50 different products. So we do all the grains and oilseeds, as well as livestock, so cattle, bison, hogs, goats, as well as honey.
Okay, so program is really applicable to these little bit more cash-strapped times, indeed. So tell me more about how the cash advance program is different than some of the other types of financing that is out there, and why do farmers choose this cash advance program in comparison to some of those other programs?
So what makes this program unique is the first $250,000 is interest-free. That saves today's interest rates. That'll save a farmer about $17,000 in terms of financing costs. With the remainder at below prime, you could look at saving anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000, depending on how much a farmer borrows and what their cost of borrowing is at the bank or their local credit union. So it can save a lot of money on the farm from a working capital financing point of view. It's also different in terms of this program, you only pay as you deliver your product. So there's no monthly payments scheduled. So you pay when you have cash flow from your product. And the third big advantage of this program is the only collateral, especially at this time of the year, is the grain itself. And that makes it a really attractive program for new entrants into the program, or new entrants into farming. So for instance, as we're transitioning farm to younger farmers, they don't have to own the land. They don't have to own the equipment to use a cash advance. As long as they own their own inventory and market it, they can take advantage of a cash advance.
Nice. Okay, so for people that have maybe using it every year, maybe they used to use it in past, or maybe they're brand new to the idea of using the cash advance program, how do they learn more? How do they get started?
Well, the easiest way is you can go to ccga.ca. We have everything there from the prices that we offer on every product to all the rules of the program, lots of frequently asked questions to help farmers understand what the program is about. If you really want to understand it, you can call us at our 1-800 number, 1-866-745-2256. Our dedicated contact center staff would be more than happy to answer farmers' questions about the program. And if they're interested in signing up, it takes about 20 minutes on the phone, Sean, and farmers can have a completed application in their inbox.
Yeah, and like I mentioned at the beginning, harvest well underway. There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the direction of the market. We've also got a lot happening in the livestock sector at this time as well. Farmers also thinking about purchasing fertilizer. Like there's a lot happening, and cash is king, so to speak. Is this typically the time when people take advantage of the program and access it?
This is an excellent time to use the program for those very reasons, Sean. So what it allows farmers to do is you don't have to sell grain or oilseeds off combine. You don't have to sell your calves right now. So if you don't have an opportunity to sell or you're not comfortable with today's prices, what the cash advance gives you the opportunity to do is have the cash flow to pay the bills, to take advantage of opportunities to buy fertilizer into next year or buy seed for next year. And you can wait to market your product and look for opportunities in the future where prices will rebound and you can make more money on your product going forward. So it gives you that opportunity to have cash flow and market your crops at a better price down the road.
Dave, what was that 1-800 number again?
That 1-800 number is 1-866-745-2256.
Great stuff. Hey, before I let you go, Dave, I heard a bit of a rumor. A little birdie told me that CCGA is reaching a special milestone this month. What's going on?
This month, we are officially 40 years old. 40 years ago today, this week, we actually started offering the Cash Advance program. And as part of the celebration of that, we've updated our look and feel. You can see behind me, we've got a new logo, a new color scheme. Our website has been completely updated. So we're refreshing the look of CCGA to modernize the look and feel of our information that's available publicly. But farmers can rest assured that we still take our service and our customer satisfaction extremely highly, and it's still the same knowledgeable staff that are answering their phone calls every day.
Well, we've been talking to Dave Gallant. He's with the Canadian Canola Growers Association. Dave, thanks so much for joining us here today for this product spotlight, talking about the Cash Advance program.
Thanks very much, Sean.
Hey, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio right after this.
Whether you're in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, running your own farm operation, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 17th, 18th, and 19th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
We have an important notice for grain farmers. The Canadian Grain Commission has revoked the licenses of Purely Canada Foods Corp. If this company owes you money for grain deliveries, call 1-800-853-6705 immediately. This is a message from the Government of Canada. Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and I am super excited for this next clip. So as I promised in the intro, this is from last night's episode of the Agronomists, where we talked all about fall weed control. So you're going to hear from Rob Miller, based here in Ontario with BASF, and Tammy Jones, based in Manitoba with Corteva. Tammy, why fall can be, for certain weeds, such a critical time to get in there and control them? Why is it the best time for some weeds?
Well, it's the best time for all weeds because you can utilize some chemistry that you might not be able to use in crop, right? So this opens up your horizons, gives you all the options, and means that, you know, chemical might not be the only way that you're controlling those weeds. You might use iron, you might, just depending on who you are and where you live and what you're doing with soil moisture, you've got some more options here than you might have at other times. The other reason why it's incredible is because you just spent hours in the field going over every inch of it, you know, row by row, looking for all those different patches of weeds that you need to control. So you know what's there, you know how you're going to kill it, you've got all the options that you need for that. And then it's about justifying whether it makes sense or not. So a few weeds that are really, really important would be perennials. When you've got some adequate regrowth, those are going to be a great opportunity to control them now. And another one that's really important is winter annuals, because if we don't get them now, getting them in the spring, it becomes much more challenging and can be more expensive. So I love fall. It is the best time of the year. Now, frost, moisture, regrowth, a bunch of other factors can maybe limit your potential, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right. And Rob, for Ontario, where we have possibly the most delightful fall season of all time, I got to tell you, Tammy, you need to spend some time here in October. It's beautiful. We actually get an autumn. But that does mean that can be a very long window where we've got weeds actively growing long before a crop is going to be back on that field. So how important then for Ontario can fall weed control be?
Yeah, so I love fall weed control, especially on the perennial weeds, as you already alluded to, and as Tammy talked about. You just seem to get, the soil just seems to work up a little bit better in the spring once the fall weed control is out of the way. So like you don't have to battle the chickweed that's turning into clumps, the bluegrass, the dandelions. You know, if your field is covered in a lot of those perennial weeds, it doesn't work up very nicely if you're trying to get the corn or the beans in. So that's why I like starting clean, stay clean in the fall with perennials. You're spending the same amount, or probably a little bit less on herbicides, but getting better, more consistent control instead of behind the 8-ball once you start to do it in the following spring. So
optimal weather conditions for glyphosate, Aragon, and merge in a desiccation of edible beans. Seems that we get highly inconsistent terminating ranging over a week in different weather. So what is happening there? Why might we see less than stellar desiccation in that sense?
Yeah, so with Aragon, it's Group 14 PPO inhibitor. It loves hot, sunny conditions. So this week that we're supposed to get the temperature, at least in central Ontario, it's supposed to be, I think, around 27 degrees tomorrow, and bright, sunny, hot weather. That's the conditions for Aragon. And you always want to do it on a more of a warming trend. So, we've been kind of cooler. We're going to get into a nice stretch of warmer weather. You always want to do that and spray it kind of at the beginning of the warmer conditions instead of at the tail end of it. So you don't want to spray, yesterday or today's nice and sunny, tomorrow's going to be raining for 3 days. So I'm going to spray today because hopefully once it stops raining, then I can start to harvest. So you always want to spray it on the warmer time. We need dry weather, good drying conditions for it to come down. But if there are no glyphosate restrictions, always add the glyphosate. It just adds a little bit more complete control and actually much better activity on some of those perennial weeds as well. So always check with your processor to see if you are able to use glyphosate. Some of the various bean types you cannot use glyphosate, but hot sunny conditions, lots of water, 20 gallons, 25 gallons even per acre. Use the 2x rate. Make sure you add in the adjuvant, and more medium droplet size is also important. Avoid dew. You don't want to spray it when dew is present, so not 6 a.m. You're better off, 9 a.m. We always say it's the Dolly Parton, works 9 to 5. Maybe in the fall, it might be more, since it gets cooler a little bit, or nights aren't as long. Maybe a more 9 to 3 seems to be a little bit better conditions. But yeah, hot sunny conditions. It's actually the opposite of Reglone. Reglone likes more overcast days as well. So
right, which Reglone actual desiccant. We should make that clear.
Yeah.
Right. I like the Dolly Parton, the 9 to 5 or 9 to 3, which is like Sean's
9 to 3,
birthday, right? Anyway, just kidding. I really hope he's still watching. Anyway, okay. So good advice there. And actually, well, first of all, Warren, you have to be, no worries there. He's not up at 6. But we are heading into a warming trend and it looks like sunshine. So maybe tomorrow is the day. Although he did mention earlier he had to pull a truck out of a field. And so we are quite wet still, Rob, I'll be honest. So there's still that to consider. Please, nobody get the sprayer stuck. That would be great. Okay. So now Chad's got a good question. And then I think, Producer Jay, we're going to go to our first clip, just after this question. But Chad says, I'm curious about fall residual chemicals for kochia. And I feel like kochia and fleabane are like the west and east evil sisters. Anyway, I'm curious about fall residual chemicals for kochia that can have spring residual chemicals sprayed for extended control in regards to pulse crops. So pulses are always one of those ones that I worry very much about residual. And so controlling kochia within any rotation that has pulses in it always makes me cringe just a little. Tammy, what is our plan of attack for something like kochia? Beyond making children pull it.
So my strategy with kochia is try to kill it in every pass. And so again, fall weed control sounds like a great idea. And actually some of the people on the comments are much smarter than I am and have talked through what some of the options are. So we've got Authority, we've got Fierce, we've got Volterra. So depending on what you have access to, those can be used in front of some of the pulse crops. And one of the key things about looking at one of those options in the fall is that they need moisture for activation. Sometimes in the spring, in parts of Western Canada, we can occasionally be a little bit dry. Those are usually the areas where kochia is also a problem. And so being able to apply it in the fall, proactively utilizing that winter moisture is meaning that we're going to have that better opportunity for activation. You need about a ½ inch of rain, something like that, to get it going. There's some other chemistries as well, the yellow chemistries that can also help out in some of this stuff. So like the edges of the world. Again, you want to make sure with some of these chemistries that you're putting them on early enough so that an edges when we're gassing off becomes kind of, how you make this layer and make sure that you've got the chemical fully covering the field. And so if you don't do it soon enough, you have more like an Afghan of coverage. But if you wait and make sure that you get it on in time, then you have like a full blown blanket. And, no one likes an Afghan of coverage.
That's right. Too many holes. You get stuck in them.
Yeah,
you do.
Exactly.
The cat can get you right through the hole. I hope everyone knows what we're talking about. Yes, grandma's crocheted blanket that's on the couch. I like it. Go for the wool duvet, full coverage. Also, good point. Kill kochia every time you go out there.
Every pass.
Did actually work. Now, Tammy, there's a question here, and we did talk about fall timing, and we talked about, having enough warmth that there's active growth. And of course, that does happen that with some species, we, at harvest, they get clipped off. But then they potentially do come back, but we may have limited green material there to target. So there is a question here that I think is important to cover. Does adding AIM to that mix in fall control kochia plants that have been cut off at harvest but are still green? There's also Canada thistle. Maybe it's too early, but how would you attack that? And does water volume play a role? This is Southern Alberta. So where you are, almost, Tammy.
Almost, yes. Okay, almost. So first of all, I do have to go back and counter Rob and say that if I have dandelions to control, I am, of course, going to use something with fluorazolam in it. So a pre-pass or a Chlor-X or something like that, because I love that kind of thing. I mean, Distinct and Jeanette, it's a great option, but there's other things out there, and it's one of the times where a group 2 like fluorazolam actually does quite a nice job. Might also get you some flushing control on volunteer canola. So there, product placement. Okay. Now to go back to the one about our Roundup 2,4-D and our DB878, I get worried about too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. We're looking at a lot of active ingredients there. And so I tend to try to pick my poisons. And one of the problems with mixing a contact and systemics is that you burn some of your spots and then you limit the translocation. So I would multiple modes of action that are registered together, absolutely happy with that, but expect that sometimes when you do some of these things that instead of synergism where you have a 1 + 2 equaling a 3 effect, you end up with a negative effect, right? And they're antagonistic instead. And so 1 + 1, you end up with only like 1.75, and it's not worth the return on investment. And this is one of those scenarios where I start to wonder about something like that. So either choose your systemic and cover it that way, or really ramp up your water volume and go with a contact and make sure you get the coverage that you need.
All right. So we covered a lot of ground last night. And so I've grabbed a couple clips here, but we did talk a lot about frost as well. Both Tammy and Rob really stressed that frost can actually be your friend when it comes to fall weed control. Don't be afraid to go in after frost. And in some cases, a frost may actually help to get better control in the fall because it actually weakens that plant. Again, though, you have to take a step back. Do you have sufficient leaf material? And is the plant actually big enough? And of course, look at your weather going forward. So if it's a frost, and it's looking like we are full on into, freeze up, no, that's not the time to go. But if it's a single frost and some warm days after, that can actually be a great time to go in and target those weeds. So one of the other discussions that we had was about herbicide resistant weeds and why something like a fall pass can really be so key. And Tammy alluded to it there that, in the fall, you're not looking at in crop. So realistically, your options are much wider. The other thing that she said, which I thought was so incredibly key, was that if in the fall you're looking at what your herbicide options are for some very troublesome or herbicide resistant, multi-herbicide resistant weeds, she said, if you're looking at the two options and one of the chemical options has a recropping restriction, but it's the better option, use that product, even if it means you have to stick to that crop rotation in the spring and it may restrict you a little. Just commit, because it is too important to do the best job possible. This is not the time. Fall is not the time to give up a bit of efficacy just to keep your cropping options open. Use the best product possible, even if it may limit your rotation options in the spring. All right, with that, let's take a quick break, and I'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Apply anhydrous ammonia and protect your application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. Easy to handle Centuro is also non-corrosive for fewer worries about downtime or equipment damage. Start early with Centuro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lyndsey Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Tuesday, September 10th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Protect your anhydrous ammonia and bottom line, even if temperatures hit 15 degrees or below. That's not too late to apply agronomically effective, non-corrosive Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Learn more at centuro.ca. All right, as promised, I'm going to tackle some of the top ag news that you need to know for this week. And then I've got a great interview with Shari Laventure out of Saskatchewan to talk about some amazing mental health initiatives out of that province. But first, we did receive word this week that China has released some details as to the anti-dumping investigation into Canadian canola. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce says that the investigation, that this is, of course, in retaliation of the Trudeau government unveiling tariffs against Chinese EVs, steel, and aluminum. This probe will last at least 6 months, potentially going as far as a year. For those interested parties that want to weigh in, they have 20 days to register and submit their comments to the Ministry of Commerce to be included in this investigation. The Canola Council of Canada, Chris Davison, said that we are engaged and in close communication with government officials regarding the implications of the investigation and Canada's participation and response to it, including the need for a coordinated approach and support for the Canadian canola industry. Now, China has banned canola imports before. That was in March 2019, and that lasted all the way until May 2022. That was where export permits of some major grain companies were canceled, and that was in retaliation of the arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou back in 2019. This investigation is into anti-dumping and would likely result, should they find that Canada has been dumping canola into China, would result in a tariff, not necessarily a complete ban of ability to ship. At the same time, if that tariff is high enough, as we've seen in the past with, say, Australian barley into China, if the tariff is high enough, it will become a de facto ban in that it will no longer make sense to actually financial sense to ship into China. Now, when China did block the export permits of Richardson and Viterra back then, or back a few years ago, it's not to say that Canadian canola didn't get into China. It just had to go other routes, namely through the UAE, which of course adds cost. And guess who pays for that? Usually farmers. So we will, of course, be keeping tabs on what happens in this investigation, who is going to be weighing in, where this may go, and just how long it may take. There are rumors, of course, that it could take up to 18 months. So this is a pretty long timeline, but at least we know it's likely 6 months and perhaps an extension of another 6 months. So head on over RealAgriculture.com. Calvin Hepner follows the story for us, and he'll have plenty more on that. We also, while you're there, check out our story on the Canadian Young Leaders Program. We've got all the finalists were named. That is on the site as well. And we'll end off with just a quick note for those of you who attended the Canadian Dairy Expo or the Poultry Expo put on by Jordan Underhill et al. That show, the Dairy Expo, has actually been purchased by the parent company of Agritechnica. So we could see potentially some expansion of that brand into the U.S., into other areas. But exciting news here for the Canadian Dairy Expo being purchased by the parent company of Agritechnica. All right, with that, let's hop to close out the show to my discussion with Shari Laventure. She is with Cargill, but also with SaskAg Matters, and she's got some important information about some resources available to Saskatchewan farmers. We'll go to that discussion now. Who or what is SaskAg Matters?
So SaskAg Matters was born out of research done at Sask Polytech by Dr. Michelle Pavlov and myself. There was a group of us that did research to say, what are Saskatchewan farmers getting for supports and help with their mental health? Is it working? Is it timely? Is it what is working and what isn't, essentially? And after we did the research, we learned a lot of things that, we said we need to fill a hole here. There's a gap. So we launched the SaskAg Matters Mental Health Network. You can see us saskagmatters.ca. You can go there to see all that we have done. We are solely running on private donations. So the good, wonderful people of this province give us money. 100% of the funds go to farmer, rancher, egg producer mental health supports.
And so, you did identify these gaps. What were some of those? What are some of the resources that farmers will find if they head to saskagmatters.ca?
Right. So on there, we have trained mental health therapists who are also ag knowledgeable. And that was what we found, is that when farmers are very stoic, we know that. And when they did finally put their hand up and say, I think I need some help, they were running into roadblocks, like it was too far to travel to get there. And also that the help they were getting, the people didn't understand their business. So on our webpage, you will see that we have therapists who are trained and certified, but they're from either from an ag background or have a lot of ag knowledge. So they understand ag producers.
Mm-hmm. And that is something that, of course, we've come across in a few different ways when we start talking about, supporting farmers, and that it is so important to have someone who understands sort of the context of what they're talking about. What did you find in your research as far as how meaningful that was?
Well, that was the loudest voice out of, we surveyed, it was during COVID when we were doing the research. So we were hoping to be in the buddy seat in the tractor with producers, and unfortunately they had to all be virtual over the phone interviews. But that was loud and clear from them. They need to talk to somebody who understands ag, and they also need to have supports that aren't 3 and 4 hours away from where they are. So there's lots of supports in the big centers in Saskatchewan. But most ag producers don't live in the big centers in Saskatchewan. So that was a barrier as well. The travel time, they would need to take usually an entire day away from the farm just to go get, a 1 or 2 hour session with the therapist.
Mm-hmm. So you did mention that this is privately funded. You do have some supporters, though, as well. So who are the supporters of this initiative, and how can people find out more about SaskAg Matters?
Yeah, so I work for Cargill, and Cargill's been a big supporter. They've kept the wheels on the bus. This is going into our second year, so we're new, right? But they've been a big supporter. We had a young gentleman down south give us a heifer that they then auctioned off, and I can't remember the dollar value, but it was a big dollar value that they raised on this heifer. There's been other funding events happen, like dinners, and we've just had a really good uptake of people saying, yes, we know that this is a need in Saskatchewan, and that SaskAg Matters is filling that need. So we've had lots of great supporters.
For someone who hears this and thinks, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, it might be something that might work for me, what would be your encouragement to them to take the step to actually reach out and perhaps, explore what's on the site and see what's available? What would be your encouragement to them?
So on the website, they will see actual photos and bios of our trained therapists, and they'll get to choose who they want to work with and how they want that therapy session to happen, whether that's via phone or a Zoom meeting or in person. There's many different ways that the producer can reach out and have the session with a therapist. We've recently added 5 new ones. I'm not sure they're uploaded on the web page yet. I'm hoping by next Monday or next week sometime we'll have them up. There are 3 currently on there. But the producer goes to the web page, reads the bios, and picks his own therapist. When he phones or gets in contact, whether it's email, phone, whatever, the therapist, he just says, I found you on SaskAg Matters, and that session is covered by SaskAg Matters. So the farmer doesn't have to pay for that session. Okay. So each ag producer or ag producer's family member is eligible for 6 hours of free counseling through SaskAg Matters.
Wonderful. All right, Shari, thank you so much for this information. We'll send everybody your way and really encourage everybody to go check it out. So thank you so much for joining me on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Lyndsey.
Well, that does it for another episode of Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host on Tuesdays, Lyndsey Smith. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for downloading the podcast. Tell your friends. I'll be back tomorrow for the Wednesday show. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this episode, brought to you by Breck Young. Check out their new BY7204LL canola with Pod Defender shatter tolerance and Defender rated club root protection. Talk to your local retailer today.